Most of you know who Steve McRae is by now. He's a friend of the channel, co-owner of the popular Non Sequitur show and a debate moderator. I got involved in this story when I responded to the breakup of Non-Sec. If you haven't seen those videos, look for the sum-up videos on my channel. They are short and to the point, but if you want the full context, you could skip through the many live streams and interviews I've done about the situation. Before Non-Sec broke up, I had only been a viewer, so after talking to Steve, it only took a few hours before noticing a strange group that we are talking about in this video series. I'm not going to go into the backstory just yet, for good reason. I'm going to start with a debate that happened a week ago on the Modern Day Debate channel between Reds Rhetoric and a guy named Science First. This revolves around a situation that we've talked about. Is Steve McRae an R-word, in quotations, apologist for interviewing a notorious internet figure with a bad reputation? Let's start by taking a peek at the people that were angered by Steve's interview. The first thing I'll do is respond to a video about me. A member of the group debunked a conspiracy theory on my main channel. The problem? That's exactly what I did in my video. I'm not going to play that person's video, but basically she pulls up mine and acts like I'm making the claim that this conspiracy is real, which I did not. I'll play the end of the video, the conclusion that I reached about the theory. Couldn't something be so powerful to so many people that it transcends the normal, that it creates so many impossible coincidences that someone whose eyes are open to the more than real could only get a small glance for a short second when peering through the looking glass of innumerable coincidental happenings? Maybe not. Maybe we're all just so affected that we piece these random things together to make sense of these tragic events. But I'll say this, as more and more coincidences pop up, I start to think that things are definitely more than real. Okay, as you just heard, my final summation was that people see these kinds of coincidences and attach a greater meaning, but in the end, it is most likely just a pile of coincidences. I say this because it is what this group does to make all of their points, or at least most of them. They all act like they're intelligent, skeptical thinkers, but if that was true, they wouldn't have to misrepresent other people's work to make a point. Now let's look at this creator's video on the Steve issue and see if she did the same thing to Steve that she did to me in criticizing mine. It's the same creator. Yeah, the same one. All right.
About anything other than police auditing will be removed. And sure enough, all of the comments were removed. Everybody trying to warn Steve about this guy being had their comments removed. And meanwhile, I started seeing that Steve was pretending, or not pretending. Steve was telling people that he knew all about this guy's police record and that it wasn't a big concern. It was nothing big.
That's not what Steve said that day. And this whole thing blew up. Steve said that he was going to remove the comments because he didn't want the drama on his channel and told everybody out there, if you have an issue, make a video about it. In the very beginning of her video, what does she do? She pretends like Steve's point was that his past doesn't matter. That's not what Steve said in any way, shape, or form. He said that the past didn't affect the interview that he was doing. But if she frames it in the way she did, she misconstrues Steve's point and creates a good reason to be able to do a 32-minute attack video. Now we're going to jump through the debate between Reds and Science Last. As you're about to see, Science Last presents himself as a concerned YouTube viewer that saw Steve's show and was offended. He had his fifis hurt. He doesn't bring up anything about his past with Steve, which I would find relevant. Also, I think the entire audience would too. If you're gonna make a case publicly about this issue, you would think you would prep the audience so that they can decide if a bias is present. It shouldn't shock anyone that Science Last is a member of this group of people that I refer to as Steve McRae or McHaters, however you want to say it. I like McRae better. This group has been attacking Steve since the breakup of the non-sec with references to Medi-Cal. Some of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's okay. The main point is seeing that he is recorded August 27th, still parroting the debunked Medi-Cal trolling to Steve publicly. Not only does he spend a lot of time with the rest of the Steve McRae, he considers some of them close friends publicly and defends them against any criticism that they get, but also uses the group's tropes to pester Steve over and over. Now, does it make sense why Science Last or Rob is the person who pressed this issue and engaged in it? In this debate with Reds? Okay, good. My point is made. Now keep that in mind while I pull some major tells from the debate itself. So is Rob just an individual that's concerned about what Steve did and said that day, or is he somebody trying to wield this as a weapon against Steve? Rob throws out a definition that is so wide it would miscategorize those legitimately defending innocent people as apologists when they're clearly not, and he acknowledges this. Reds descends on the illogical definition and lists many famous cases where somebody wasn't innocent, even one where he was deemed guilty for 20 years. Reds then ends out his rebuttal asking Rob if he would like to change the definition so that it didn't do this to these innocent people. Logical people listening were surprised when Rob did not want to change the definition, but instead made this argument.
So, tell me, do we still want to stick with that definition, or do we wish to modify it?
Yeah, I want to stick with that definition. What I wanted to do was defend maybe why the case that Steve, that I allege, has fallen into apologetics, albeit I think unintentionally, how that differs from the people who have defended people charged with, like Brian Banks. Essentially, what I think the difference comes down to is it can be summed up in 3 words: motivation, intention, and application.
So basically, he lists these 3 things as what differentiates somebody from being an apologist and not, and states that he wants to maintain the definition, and he's going to explain why. He says motivation, intention, and application. How ironic that in those other cases, they have an out for apologetics, but in Steve's case, he does not. Interesting. Wish we would have a good explanation for this. As the debate goes on, Rob doubles down on how this definition doesn't work for those proven to be innocent because they went to court. And Steve just said it on YouTube or social media. This does not fit his definition. Everybody heard it. Everybody knows it. But after this, it's obvious Rob knew that he couldn't logically move on. He had hit a roadblock. Reds had destroyed anything else Rob could bring forth. So Rob did what a lot of liars do when a simple logical point explodes their hours of prepared arguing. He starts bringing up the horrible things that Warren did. Everybody knows the horrible things that Warren did by now. Everybody knows, and they have already accepted that this doesn't apply. But he brings them up. Obviously, since his main line was now derailed, he knew this emergency tactic may turn some of the people in the audience against Steve just because this man had done horrible things. Also to note, people in the audience that support Rob and Fiona were typing things the whole time just to troll, just to throw Steve under a bus. Of course, this didn't make Steve an apologist, so Red knocked him down again by calling Rob out for strawmanning him, and then dropping more logic bombs. Reds calls out points made before the debate that did exactly what Rob is doing here, and says how much they don't care about the victims and why, which is a good point. And I know that this angered Rob. You can tell that it did. This angers Rob into doing what he does throughout a big portion of the rest of the debate, interrupting Reds over and over. Now, in the middle of interrupting Red, Rob doubles down, then triples down, then quadruples down on how Steve deleting comments makes him an apologist. Red has already answered this with way more logic than what Rob has, so it's very strange that he did it. But then again, if you have to throw out much of your argument because of how destroyed it was in the very beginning, it makes sense, I guess. These are desperate tactics by a defeated debater, obviously. I'm going to roll through a little montage of some of the interruptions and crappy points.
Called it drama and the stuff of trolls.
Okay, are you done?
Now,
So I can
you've
reply
just said that is minimizing.
Are you done? So I can finish my statement? Because I was actually about to bring that up.
Do you want me to read what he wrote?
Well, it was a little bit off, right? It wasn't, just to be sure that he gets
Yeah, read what he wrote. Dude, watch my video. I put his screenshots in my video. Of course I read what he wrote. So it's
Trolls everywhere, coming out to feed on drama.
He called it a witch hunt. And yes, he was referring
Keep drama off my page.
Will you let me finish? 5 minutes and 45 fucking seconds. You're bringing up shit that was brought up after the fact by over 30 fucking minutes. You dense fuck. The reason why it was
I'm a dense fuck, am I?
Steve McRae people who really didn't have any power in their own to do anything about it. Not until somebody from the Innocence Project actually stepped in to do something
and
about it.
They did something about it. Warden's done nothing. He trots off to sign the sex offenders register every Thursday. He's never done anything.
Over and over and over again. And still people try to use it as some sort of gotcha. It has failed. It failed 2 weeks ago, and it fails as hard now. Secondly, what Steve McRae...
Can I just address that? I'm using it in a different way, though. I'm not using it as a gotcha. I'm using it to evidence that Warden lied.
Science first, I'll let you answer. I just want to... If we can, like, let's just kind of do a working memory.
Then me never tell you about the ragamuffin business and thing.